we became involved in this in late November of 2011, the Division of Oil and Gas did not have a seismic monitoring program. Any seismic capabilities or monitoring that was done through the Ohio Geologic Survey. They have an Ohio size network. So we began working with the staff that ran that program. They implemented that program, I believe, in 1999 and have been running it since. We worked with them to help evaluate. They ran programs to help us determine, to the degree we could, whether the events that are in the last table in this report might be associated with North Star 1 operation.
And what were the general conclusions that were drawn from the study?
You know, there were a couple of events that occurred in March. So they occurred about 9 months before 4.0 eventually occurred. When those two incidents occurred, there wasn't any alarm. The Geologic Survey didn't make us aware that anything was going on. And then 5 months later in August, another series of events began. And then in each month from August through December, seismic events started to occur. So I think it was in September. As the August and September events occurred, the Geo Survey kind of raised an alarm to us saying, our analysis is making us believe that there's a correlation between these events and the activity that's seen. Now, I wasn't involved in September. I wasn't chief at that point. I became involved in November, but the division became involved in September. And then later, as the months went on, we sought additional seismic monitors to go out so we could help substantiate the possible correlation of this seismic activity in the injection operation.
And in the course of looking at the data and the magnitudes of these events, did you come to notice that there was any particular big jump in seismic activity in terms of magnitude?
Yeah, you know, the table shows the magnitude, so I'm not going to go through those, but they ranged through the majority of the months, beginning in March and going up through December. They ranged from low 2s to mid 2s, or a little above mid 2 magnitude. And just before the 4.0, they elevated a little bit up to about a 2.7. Now that had occurred, that magnitude had occurred earlier, but we were seeing an increase from lower magnitudes to higher magnitudes, from the low 2s to 2.7, and then about a week after we saw the 2.7, we had a 4.0 event.
Looking at that figure in Table 5, as part of the exhibit, what are the ranges where there are felt reports in terms of the magnitude?
A quick look at it looks like about 2.2 to 4.0.
And can you explain what a felt report is?
Yeah, the Ohio Size Network has, they post any of the seismic events that they become aware of, and then they, as they post that event, they ask anybody that believes they felt shaking from that to report and give some description of what they felt, times, dates, those kind of things. So it's kind of a qualitative report that the public would send in saying that I believe I felt something.
Yeah. Were there any lessons learned with regards to drilling and injecting in the proximity of the Precambrian formation?
Yeah. Right after this occurred, we not only worked closely with our own Division of Geologic Survey, but we started calling all around the country to other geologic surveys and my counterparts in other oil and gas producing states, and especially those that were having activity like Oklahoma. They were monitoring this type of activity for several years before we began to monitor and evaluating whether there might be a potential for induced activity that's associated either with well completions or injection activities. One of the things that was repeated over and over by those that were already looking into this. We also contacted members, professors from a number of colleges, consultants, federal agencies like USGS, to try to gain any knowledge or experience or get direction on what way we should go. And almost universally, they said you have to be careful how deep you allow a well to be drilled. You have to be careful what formations are open to injection. Specifically, they warned about going down to the granitic basement rocks, basement structures, because there's more potential energy in those rocks, and you have a potential for, if all the conditions are right, you have a potential for larger seismic events.
What was the next induced seismicity related event or potential event that you were involved in?
Well, right after this 4.0 occurred at North Star, we asked our geosurvey to go back and look at their records and try to identify if there were any single events or any clusters of tightly packed or closely spatially related seismic events that they could identify around the state. They came back with some information. They found one cluster of events that was down in the Washington County area, down Washington County around Marietta. And as they came back with these events or clusters of events, then internally we would go see if there were well completion operations or injection activity that might be in relatively close proximity to that. In the Marietta or Washington County area, there were injection activities. I think the injection wells that were in the area of the cluster.
Chip, can I interrupt you? I mean, interrupt you, but there were, before we get, and I will ask you more about this Washington County, were you involved in any fracking related induced seismicity type investigation?
Yeah.
Before you would get to that one.
Okay. Well, I'll just give kind of a quick summary. We had what we believe is a well completion fracking related incident in Harrison County, and another one in Mahoning County. So we believe we had two induced seismicity events that were associated with well completion.
And what happened generally in Hillcorp? What did the division initially do, and what's happened since?
Hillcorp's the owner of the Mahoning County location. We had some monitoring equipment fairly close as a result of North Star, and the Ohio Size Network had some equipment in place that was relatively close, so we had a pretty decent monitoring system. Hillcorp was in the process of completing, I believe, 3 wells through what they term a zipper frac. They were going back and forth between the wells in kind of a rapid succession. And our system picked up seismic activity. So we reviewed that very quickly, asked them to shut down their operation while we reviewed that, which they did. And then we had a reasonable scientific certainty that their well completion operation was inducing seismicity. So we asked them to not complete any more of the well, not produce the well, and later we gave them permission to produce the portions of each well that were completed.
And then you talked about Harrison.